following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Bronx Roots. David Hubler, Michael Preminger, me, Ralph Tyko, and this week we're going to be joined by Scott Russell. Scott's not here yet. He shall be. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good.
Mm-hmm. How are you?
Everything's fine. I can't complain at all. I feel almost guilty, and you must too, Michael, that we are having balmy weather in California.
Yeah.
And the rest of the country is just, you included, David, you've got to be suffering. This has been a horrible...
Yeah, as long as it doesn't snow, I'm okay. You know, that's the thing, because around here when it snows, everything comes to a halt. It's incredible how quickly. Right now it's just gray and overcast and sort of icky, typical winter kind of day. But it hasn't been. It's been very cold, but a couple of days really cold. But I'll take that instead of the snow.
Now you're not in the Bronx right now. You're in Maryland.
I'm in Virginia, further south.
Okay. But
yeah.
You can understand why Virginia is not going to be prepared, a state like Virginia, for these horrific snowstorms, horrific winters. It's Virginia's pretty much the South, for crying out loud.
Yeah. But we, every 10 years or so, we'll get a really bad one. And I must say, though, that over the years that we've lived here, the cleanup has been greatly improved. We do get off. We can usually get onto this highway by the next day. They are plowing the side streets regularly now. At one point, you had to wait 4 or 5 days. One year, I had to call the people the State Department, state office, and I said, "Look, I'm a physician. I've got to get to the hospital." Oh, okay. So they came down the street, but I don't have to do that anymore.
Hey, they came with if you should have told them you're going to make a house call. They'd have come down the street and given you a parade for crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I'm not a real doctor. I just play one on TV.
You just
well,
I know when they say, I read a thing where people say on these infomercials, they're not actors; they're real people.
Yes,
actors aren't real people. Actors like what are actors?
Yeah, I've seen that too. I get a kick out of that as well. Yeah.
I'll tell you what I get a kick on. We're getting off the subject, a little TV commercial. Tell your doctor to prescribe such and such drug. Tell your doctor to prescribe it. Well, you know what? I want my doctor to tell me what's best.
That's true.
Right.
Just because he went to medical school, not, and I'm sitting here watching TV, and that's the extent of my medical knowledge. But I want a doctor who will tell me. I also want a doctor who will tell me to use natural remedies as opposed to the chemical kind. Just off the top of my head about medicine. But we're going to talk a little bit today about assimilation in assimilation in the Bronx in post-World War II years. And I want to start with David Hubler. What does that mean to you, and how did assimilation affect you? You were born before the war, so which tells me a little
the 100 Years' War
about. Obviously, your parents were here. Yes.
Yes.
What comes to mind when I say that?
Well, it's true. Both of my parents were born here, and in fact, even my maternal grandmother was born in Long Island City, which was rare among the people that I grew up with. In fact, this is a true story. It's until I was maybe 13 or 14, I could not believe that older people, which is now me, didn't speak with a Yiddish accent. I could never imagine that you sort of grew into it. As you got older, you wound up with a Yiddish accent. And
I used to use that in my act. That one day you wake up and you go, "How you feeling, Moish?" Well, I feel good, but I'm speaking like this. I didn't know.
Sei gesund, you know. No, it was true because there were so many. I mean, there wasn't that much assimilation where Michael and I grew up. It was a largely Jewish enclave, but there were. I remember seeing people who had the numbers tattooed on their arms. I mean, there was one family in our building who had a homemade memorial to the family, the people they lost in the Holocaust. They had the statue up on the mantelpiece with it was 5 small hands reaching up toward the sky, and on the back of each palm was a small portrait of one of the 5 people. I think it was 5 who were lost in the Holocaust. So it was very, very real and very close to us. And I also remember going down to the schoolyard where Michael and I hung out the night that they the night that they executed the Rosenbergs, and the feeling was, this is not a good thing for the Jews. It was a shanda. It was a bad thing.
Right.
And that the only other assimilation was in my own home because my parents didn't observe any of these particular holidays. I remember whenever on Jerome Avenue, Michael will attest to this. For Passover, the 3 bakeries closed down. You couldn't buy a roll or a loaf of bread. You could get it, of course, in the supermarket, but the fresh homemade thing, they closed for the whole week. So my mother would send me over into the Gentile neighborhood, the Irish neighborhood, all the way down to buy bread and rolls. And this was like sneaking contraband back into my.
Where was that neighborhood?
You remember down by it was down Bainbridge, all the way down by what was the other movie theater down there?
So Mashalou, we're on 205th Street?
Yeah, it was down there, 205th Street, right. Yeah. There was a bakery down there. It was an Irish or Italian bakery, I forget which. But I had to go all the way over there and bring this stuff back. And it was obvious what was in the bags because they had those very distinctive white bags that all the bakeries used. And I had to literally sneak it back into my building.
That's very funny.
Yeah. So.
What do you have there? Bread. Get 'em.
Your money or your bread?
I Jew with bread.
Actually, your gelt or your bread?
Yeah. No, so it was, that was part of the assimilation because there were a number
of
people.
Where I grew up, I like David says, it was mostly, 95% or something Jewish people in the neighborhood. So as far as assimilation, I just grew up, like David says, knowing just that one thing, so to speak.
Right.
Now, my grandparents were all, and my father was from Austria. I never knew any of my mother's parents came here, but they died before I was born, and my father's parents disappeared in the World War
during the war.
Yeah, and his brother. So, but my father never spoke about it, ever. I have pictures of my uncle and his wife and his daughter, and of my paternal grandmother. Now my father, he didn't speak English when he came here. Now this was long before World War II. I think after World War II was the start of people moving to Long Island.
Yes.
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 The 50s anyway.
City,
What's that?
Lefrak City was one of the...
Mm-hmm.
And Levittown.
Levittown. I was thinking of Levittown, not Lefrak City. Maybe that was another one that I remembered. But yes, my family bought a co-op in Queens. It's called Northridge, and it's 99% Jewish. It was the board of directors were Jewish, and it was post-World War II, and it was incredibly reasonable, and they kept it as a Jewish community in a very, very Irish, Italian neighborhood in Queens. It basically crossed the line for Jews in this country. So,
isn't it interesting that we were kind of isolated in a way with the schools and everything? That it was all just us, that show this is us.
Yeah.
That was us. There wasn't, until we went to high school. Well, my father I think I mentioned it, had a store in Harlem, and I would go down there often and help there. But
may I ask what street in Harlem? Because I sold insurance out of when I first graduated high school, 125th and Lenox Avenue.
Wow, that's the heart of Harlem.
Sounds about right.
Right in the heart of it.
Yep, in the heart. He definitely was in the heart of Harlem, and that's why I'm so proud. Never once, ever, maybe I said this already, I never heard him use the N-word. It was just, these were just his clients. It was people.
Exactly.
So I never... There was never an ounce of prejudice. My favorite story when I was 5 years old, we did have a lady who would come every 2 weeks and clean, because my mother worked as well as my father. And one day I got in a fight with a kid, and I ran upstairs to the lady who cleaned, who was black, and I said to her, "Mary, is there a Negro in the house?" Because I didn't know, and she picked me up and gave me a big hug. Because to me, she was just the lady who I saw every 2 weeks. I didn't see color. I just saw Mary. So it was yeah. So you really have to be taught.
Yes, yeah.
And and you have to teach too, to pass it on.
Oh, yeah.
So even if you were taught, just rhetorical, I'm obviously not addressing it to you guys, but to folks out there, even if you were taught that thing, you have to put it into perspective that those people were a product of their times, and that doesn't mean that you have to be a product of your times. The only way to stop it, the craziness in this world as I see it, is for people to progress a little bit from how they had it. You don't have to have the same views as whoever it was that raised you, or either way. So we're at a crossroads in this country. I can see very easily our society crumbling in the very near future. I can't. We got to get some sanity back, and I don't know how it's going to happen. But when you speak of Bronx roots and whatever, we all have ancestors, fathers, grandparents, that if they were alive today, they'd be just absolutely mortified at what's going on, at how we're polarized as a country. I'm just in shock.
Yeah, I think after the Second World War, there was a huge sense of optimism, and most of the history books of that era sort of portray that there was a tremendous amount of, we were talking about assimilation. There was an influx of refugees, an influx of people from other countries, and the interesting thing I think was that that this could have happened in terms of the Jews. There was a movement to try to get a number of them out, as many as possible, out of Nazi Germany. But the U.S. government and the Canadian government, which is even more restrictive, turned their backs on bringing them in. Of course, there was, the famous ship that was filled with German Jews who couldn't find a port to land. The ship kept moving and finally went back to Germany, where they were all picked up and probably all assassinated, killed.
Supposedly, like half of them wound up in the camps.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think Joseph Kennedy had a big part in that, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know how much Kennedy. He might have.
Ambassador to England. He was.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
In bed with.
He was a bad guy.
With Hitler.
He was a
bad guy.
Yeah, I mean Roosevelt went around Joseph P. Kennedy went around him when he wanted to talk to Churchill because he didn't trust Kennedy. Now, why he wasn't ever recalled is another question I've never been able to answer. I mean, Truman too, but also Roosevelt had the authority to say, "Come, you're out. Come on back." Didn't happen. I don't know why. But there was a lot of hostility toward Jews in those days in the States. Still is. Look what's happening.
Yeah, I looked up something.
And the backlash with it all. And I'm a Zionist from when I was a kid. And David, my family too, we were culturally Jews, but we weren't observant.
Right.
But everybody was a Zionist in those days. And I'd like you guys' opinion on Jerusalem being the capital and the Palestinians and what's going on there as you guys see it.
Mike, what you said? You looked up something?
Oh yeah, I did it. Yeah, thank you. It's between 1933 and 1945. The United States took in only 132,000 Jewish refugees, only 10% of the quota allowed by law.
Huh.
So we were, And then after World War II, the Displaced Persons Act eventually admitted 400,000 Europeans, 16% were Jewish. So we were turning away Jews during and even after the war.
Yeah.
Kind of sad.
My father escaped the war through Brussels. He came from Poland, went to Brussels, but he couldn't get here but for going to Cuba first. Cuba was...
yes.
He had to spend X number of days or months in Cuba before he could come here. And he lost his mother, Michael. His father had been dead, but he lost his mother and brother in the Holocaust, which Poland this past week is kind of denying. They don't want anything to do with the history of this, that, and the other thing. And
they're passing a new law that you can't say the Polish death camps because they weren't Polish death camps.
Well, what are you going to call them? Summer camps?
Well, they're rewriting history. They're rewriting history. I mean, the Poles were probably more complicit in the extermination of the Polish Jewish population than any other country, and it's just a fact. If you saw that movie Shoah, which ran for there was two parts. One was May, and the next part was June. I mean, it was the longest movie ever made, and it was you could, if you sat there through the whole 8 hours of it or something. But I mean, it showed in Poland. This was after the war. They were back interviewing people, and you know, the Poles were talking about their former neighbors, but they were not talking about them in a complimentary way. So there was still a remnant of that long after the war was over. And this is just one of these right-wing governments that seem to pop up in places that we don't expect them to sometimes. And this is the latest kick for the Polish government to deny its responsibility. You could refute the argument.
How does that speak to healing, to worldwide healing?
It doesn't.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a reason why Hitler put so many of the camps in Poland.
Well, I think, too, that the Catholic Church was complicit in rounding up the Jews in Poland. They were very instrumental. Not everybody in the Catholic Church, of course.
No. There were some, righteous Gentiles from Poland,
absolutely.
too.
And there's not enough publicity that those people can get. And every now and again, you hear stories that, about survivors that can trace it all to one human being. I know Schindler.
Yeah.
Well, the movie, The Zookeeper's Wife.
Oh, yes. No, I haven't. It's on my list.
It's good. It's a Polish couple, not Jewish, who saved like 500 children during the war by hiding them in the zoo.
Huh.
Yeah. Good.
Michael,
really good movie.
Let me speak to this for a second. I did some comedy. You did comedy. And, the expression, a Jewish comedian, well, that's a redundancy, that kind of thing. Why is it, and I think I have a pretty good idea, but would you word it for me, why is there such a high preponderance of Jewish comedians?
Well, good. You mean now, or certainly in
well,
the 50s?
Probably not so much so now. Maybe there are fewer now, but when you say now, Mel Brooks is still here. Larry David.
But I guess compared to the preponderance.
Yeah, to other nationalities. Yeah. Koreans, for instance, have very few Jews.
Who did?
A few Jewish comedians in Korea? Yeah, that's probably
Margaret Cho, Jewish by injection.
That's a good
as a matter of fact,
What's
Go ahead. No, I just want your impression as to what's the reason for that, and how much did your Judaism affect your act, and had to affect all of it because it was you. But
yeah, I think some of it, but I don't know if it's a cliche. It goes back to 2,000 years ago when survival and all we had was our humor to keep us going. I think that's why a lot of black comedians today, have the past to compare it with, to make fun of. And I never used Judaism too much, but yet more often than not, people will come up afterwards and say, "Oh, you're from New York," and I think they don't say Jewish, but most of them know.
Yeah, that's what they mean. Yeah,
a wink and a nod. It's a wink and a nod.
Yeah. But why Jewish? I like. There's a great book called The Jewish Sense of Humor, and it's I'll give you an example. There's two guys are walking down the street. Starts raining. One turns to the other and says, "You have an umbrella? Open it." He says, "It won't help." He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, it has holes in it." "So why did you take it? Why did you bring it?" He says, "I didn't think it was going to rain." So it's that Jewish twist of it's just something. I don't know how to explain it, but I love that story because it's the way we look at things and just can twist things. It's delicious is what I think.
Yes. And it has a ring of truth to it. All of these stories have, at bottom, there's a ring of truth.
Yeah, some of the cliches, the grandmother walking down the street with her two grandchildren, and she meets an old friend, and the friend says, how old are the children? And the woman goes, oh, no, I'm goofing. Oh, the doctor's 5 and the lawyer's 3. You can go. Myron Cohn was the perfect.
Wonderful.
Yeah, you guys have spoken.
I know I'm still not answering the question, but there's just.
Yes, you are answering. You are definitely answering the question in every way.
There's just something about it. I know Jackie Mason built a whole career out of it, and sometimes it's interesting. My uncle hated Jackie Mason because he thought he was just making everything such a stereotype about Jews.
Right. And he has not helped his memory in the last few years, making statements and what have you. But he was the guy who got up on Sullivan and
with the finger,
with a finger for you, a finger for you, and here a finger for you, which. And he was a rabbi's son and a rabbi's grandson as well.
Wasn't he ordained? I thought he was ordained too. I could be wrong.
Might have been. Who made you laugh, David, when you were a kid?
Well, certainly Myron Cohn. I told that story of coming out of the theater after seeing the depressing movie. Myron Cohn. Michael makes me laugh a lot.
Thank you.
And let's see. Well, everybody watched Milton Berle. You grew up in the 50s, you watched Milton Berle and Jackie Gleason. But they weren't stand-up comics. Berle may have done some, I guess, in Vaudeville. But, they had these TV shows. You didn't see, unless you were watching Ed Sullivan, you didn't see too many really stand-up comics.
Right.
They didn't have shows like they do now, Comedy Central and all these other shows. So I think, and then of course I liked what's his name? He's still the satirical comedy and the political commentary of
Lenny Bruce, Mort Saul.
Mort Saul, I was thinking of, that's right, and Lenny Bruce, because they didn't, Bruce especially didn't get too much TV exposure. But I would say
Fallon used him a few times.
Yeah.
But not a lot. No, not a lot.
No, you couldn't trust what he was going to. It was all live TV then too, so you really couldn't trust some of these people. I didn't care for some of the old vaudevillian types. I never liked Ed Wynn. I didn't think they were particularly funny.
Ed Wynn, that's my only.
Yeah, I liked his son Keenan better than I liked it, and because he wasn't a comedian.
He was a hell of a character.
Ed Wynn became such a great actor, though.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful dramatic actor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and who? Another one, Phil Foster. I did like Phil Foster because he was the epitome of Brooklyn. with his Brooklyn Dodgers
Very much
jokes
so.
and stuff. So
Right.
and he was good, and I guess that was and everybody.
I know I mentioned once before Alan King.
Yes, I was just going to say an Alan King. Yeah.
Okay.
How about London Lee? I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Who?
London Lee. How about Joan Rivers? Were you guys impressed? I thought she was a genius. I'm not talking about the old, not the old, but the recent, what she became a caricature with the standing up and at the events and the fashion thing. I'm talking about her humor when she started in the 50s. I thought she was terrific. She made me laugh.
And she was a phenomenon at that time because there were no women comedians. You know, Lucille Ball wasn't a stand-up comic. She was a serious actress for a good number of years and did very well in comedy as some.
There were a few, not to Toady Fields.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And there was a woman who was supposedly really ahead of all of them. I guess you could see her on YouTube, maybe named Stanley. Maybe you know Jean Carroll. Does that ring a bell, or not ring a bell?
Yeah, it does slightly.
Yeah, and I'm a friend. Elaine Boozler is an old friend from. We started out around the same time. Yeah.
I want to mention one thing about Rivers.
Yeah. Elaine started like around 1970.
Right.
I have one Bronx question. Maybe this is more than just the Bronx. And I've been wanting to ask this now since last week. Whatever happened to Hydrox cookies? Just a question that's been bothering me.
All right, that is a good question.
The Oreo cookie, right?
Yes.
Right. You remember Hydrox?
Sure.
It was the darker chocolate.
Right.
And I've been asking. I mean, at least once every few months, I bring that up with my psychiatrist. And
okay, well, my goal.
I want to know. This is what's going on in my life. It shows you where I put my priorities, but I feel very hurt, is what I feel. I really liked it. Yeah. And,
well, I'm going to try to do the best I can to find out about Hydrox cookies.
Hydrox. That was a Jewish cookie.
Hydrek.
Entenmann's.
Hydrek. Yes.
I remember Entenmann's.
Oh, Entenmann's is still around.
Entenmann's. Yes.
Entenmann's.
That's what you get when you don't.
You know why? Because you can't go empty-handed.
That's right. Somebody else
is that what they said?
Yeah.
Entenmann's is good.
If you went to visit somebody, you had to.
I see what you mean.
My mother-in-law had this theory that you could eat anything that come out of the freezer was good. So everything went into the freezer. And we had, this is a true story, friends came over and we were staying at my mother-in-law's because we were in the States between tours abroad. And these friends came over and they came with a box of cake, that white cardboard box with the white string tied around it, on the four corners, and they gave it to us. And within 2 minutes, it was gone off the table, and it was in the freezer. I mean, we were going to have it that night, but it had to go in the freezer first.
And with that string, if you couldn't open the knot, you would squeeze the string around the box.
Yes, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Am I right? Without breaking the box. You didn't want to just rip it open and break the box, but
string.
No, it might contain one. Yeah, it might contain one of those great chocolate layer cakes.
Really?
That's a memory, huh? And I'll give you this too. In the Jewish bakeries, when you went in with your mother, they always gave the kid a cookie, no matter what. The kid could have.
Wait a second. I didn't get a cookie. Where were you getting your cookies from? I never got a free cookie.
We always got a free cookie.
Gee.
I was in Queens. My
I'll send you some.
We were in Queens, and on 89th Street and Northern Boulevard, the bakery, I can't think of her name right now. Glenn Hirsch would know, and I'm wondering if you knew Glenn Hirsch, the comedian in New York. He was from my neighborhood.
I knew him a little bit. I remember the name. Yeah, I'll tell you a bakery story, if I may. I would go to, it was Butterflake Bakery, was bakery near me. So on Sunday morning, I'd go with my brother, who was 5 years younger than I was, and we'd go to the bakery, and it was mobbed. I mean, I don't know, it was just mobbed, and you had to take a number. So I would take a number, and then what we would do, my brother and I, we would, when people after they were called, sometimes the guy behind the counter would take the number, but usually the customer would just throw it on the floor. So we went around and we picked up numbers from the floor. And so when they called like number 20, I'd go, here, but somebody else had 20, the new 20. I had an old 20. And they would say, wait a minute, you can't use this. And I'd point to my brother. I said, this little boy, he's 8 years old. Would he lie? How could you not give this little boy a cookie and give me the order? I mean, he's a little kid. He's going to cry. And my brother would wipe his tears. And so we never had to wait. We did that every Sunday morning, I swear to you.
I believe it. I remember. There were so many bakeries in those Jewish neighborhoods.
Oh my gosh!
And so and there I was bringing contraband in on Passover. They all closed. They all closed.
Oh yeah. When we would get onion rolls, and we'd get a rye bread slice with seeds. I can still
rye bread.
Say it right. Mm-hmm. And by the time we got it, my mother would say, "Where's the other half of the rye bread?" Because I would eat it.
Yeah, it was so good. There's nothing like it. You can't.
It was warm and crispy, and so I'd eat the rye bread.
So I think what you guys miss most about those days was the food. If you stop to think of it as much as anything.
I do.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we had 3 bakeries and 3 delicatessens on our one block of Jerome Avenue. I mean, that's unheard of.
Oh, the ones on Jerome. That's right.
Yeah. And a cafeteria.
Was there pizza back there then? I know there was, when I was growing up, pizza was very, very popular. You guys have pizza much?
Yeah. We didn't have
across the street from me, and down the block was a restaurant, an Italian restaurant. And they serve pizza, and now my father never ate it, so I was never in that restaurant, and it was there all the years I was growing up, so I don't remember when I had my first slice of pizza, but there it was, my whole childhood, and I never went inside. Finally, I think
it was a day when eating out, that people, at least my parents, what are you going to get when you go, what's the food like? It may taste good, but they were worried about the tainted meat, this, that, and the other thing. We didn't go out much in those days.
No, we had a very nice sit-down delicatessen called Schweller's. That was
my bar mitzvah.
Yeah? You had your bar mitzvah at Schweller's?
Yeah, after the ceremony, shul near me, my party, because I didn't care then, nor do I now, so why am I mentioning it? But we didn't have a lot of money, so there was a big room, second room at Schweller's, and that's where we had my party.
And everybody had to walk up there? I'm thinking from where you lived to Schweller's was a good schlep. You could walk. Everybody walked?
They walked, or a number of the people had cars.
Oh,
but then again, it's a schlep, but to me, that was going to Jerome Avenue was nothing, walking. But the doors to the party room there were doors that would lead to the kitchen. And so what I remember is getting up to thank everybody, thank you, Uncle Sid and Jeanette. And as I'm doing this, you hear, 2 dogs with sauerkraut, one person just yelling orders, and I'm trying to get through my speech. I said, no, I said, shut up in there. I will never forget that.
Did you guys have a religious ceremony as well? David mentioned that your family wasn't observant. That, with me, they put the kids through Yiddish school. Where we didn't learn Hebrew. It was what they called an arbiter ring, which is a socialist.
Workers' ring. Yeah, arbiter ring. Yeah.
And I went to Yiddish school. I learned the language. I gave a speech for my bar mitzvah, but and I had a ceremony. I had a reception, but I gave the speech at the reception, and that counted as a bar mitzvah as far as my father was concerned.
Oh.
He became a strict atheist with the wall when he saw when.
Well, yeah, I know people that talk about that assimilation aspect. I knew people too whose parents just turned their back on any kind of religion after what they had either experienced or knew of from the Holocaust. Yeah.
I went to school.
My father did. One of you mentioned your parents didn't talk about it. My father didn't talk much about it, but I could remember the looks when he'd explain what I consider to be an agnostic point of view of, at least it's become agnostic for me, when he'd say, well, even if there was a God, is this the kind of God that you want to pray to? So, which, just brought up my life's philosophy of, there may be a God. I'll accept it when I see it. But I'm not really going to sit down and worship this God, even though, he exists, he or she, doesn't necessarily earn worship from me.
Yeah. Well, Michael and I both went to Shalom Aleichem Volksschule in Swansea.
That's Shalom Aleichem. I couldn't think of it. Thank
you. Which was a Hebrew school. In Swansea, 21. Yeah. I didn't know if there was.
You actually learned the language and what have you.
Oh yeah, it was torture. It was torture. I got thrown out so many times. My mother came. Do you remember Havelitsky, the teacher there? This guy had a thick Yiddish accent, and he hated me because I was always clowning around. And my mother would come and he'd say, "A regular Milton Boyle, this kid is. Gotta take him out. He's a regular Milton Boyle." So I had to go to the. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so I wound up learning from the rabbi in our small temple, which was even worse. It was just myself and one other close friend of mine, John. The two of us would sit there to learn the Haftorah and these portions in strict Hebrew. I mean, this guy wasn't even, he was an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. And we made it through. But that was, Chabagol, he was one of the teachers there too, right? Yeah,
geez. I did not do well I did not do well. I studied for my Haftorah and I did it, and afterwards he said they were going to leave me back.
You
can't
get bar mitzvah till you're 14?
Yeah, they were. No, I did the bar mitzvah, but afterwards they said, we want you to come back for another year. And even then I said, wait a minute. I didn't pay any attention. Now you think I'm going to pay attention? Now that I did bar mitzvah?
Well, already bar mitzvah.
What else do you need to do? Yeah. I remember we went down to the Lower East Side where my parents bought a record of some rabbi singing or a cantor singing the Haftorah portion. You could buy those things, and you just sat there and listened to this over and over and over again until you memorized the whole thing.
You know, I wasn't doing well in Spanish, and my parents went out and bought me a Spanish record. Uno, dos, tres. The repetition of it is crazy making.
Oh yeah, and they do that today too. They have all these programs that you can go buy a program to learn conversational Spanish, French, whatever it is. Well, you learn the phrases, but that doesn't mean you're going to understand what the person is saying to you. So
yeah, exactly.
Right. You just
and it isn't going to guarantee you're going to give a rat's ass what they say to you anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So it can all be a waste of time. Hey guys, this is
what happened to our guest? We're waiting for a guest.
Didn't show. I'm waiting. He was happy about being here. I sent him.
Maybe he heard us and left.
Well, maybe we didn't leave the door open like Elijah. He come right in.
And I have to ask myself, can you blame him?
Oh, we're fun. We're fun guys.
I think what we have going here is terrific. He'll be back. He'll be here another time, or he won't.
Tell him he only has one more shot. We don't. One more chance. That's it.
We're a two-strike kind of guy.
Yeah, that's right. You start out here with 2 strikes in this program.
Absolutely. How about next week we talk about the great Yankees of the Bronx and what I consider to be a very special guy, Michael Preminger, because you had the balls to root for the Dodgers.
Yes.
Yes. And if you were an avid fan of the Dodgers, you knew how many of those years that we grew up in, it was the Yankees and Dodgers playing each other. So we'll talk a little ball next week and see what I know that David's memory for all of this is absolutely incredible. You're like Ray.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Oh no.
So it'll be a good show, and I want to hear about.
Now and then I'm going to look for some cookies for David.
Yeah, I'd like a cookie.
Some Hydrox. I'm as good as Googling it right now. All I need is a computer. Sometimes my Googling falls behind when I don't have the computer on.
Yeah, that would slow you down.
Google fall behind. That's not at this age. You shouldn't do that.
No.
Absolutely. Well, this whole another story for another day. I'm such a dinosaur with computers. So for me to have put this network together with, which is all computers, all, these shows, tremendous. Internet radio, it's all good.
And 2 years now. I didn't realize it was 2 years.
This, the 4th, whatever it is, today.
Yeah, that's today.
Anniversary of being a network. I did podcasting for 4 years beforehand.
Wow.
And we'll talk about that sometime. How it became a network. It was motivated by 3 people, one of whom was Ronnie Rabinovitz.
Yeah.
As long as we're talking about Giants and Dodgers, maybe he's technically not a Bronxite. Maybe we'll invite him for next week, and he can chip in. He was a friend of Jackie Robinson's. And
tell him to bring her rye bread.
She's in Minneapolis. They don't have rye bread. It's all white bread out
sorry.
there.
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Well, you didn't know where he was, yeah.
No,
it's
no.
all white bread,
apologize.
literally and figuratively, in Minneapolis.
Can I say one thing? I'm such a New Yorker. I'm rooting for the football Giants to win today.
Good luck.
I'm such a New Yorker. I'm rooting for the Giants. I'm such a fantasy guy. I'm rooting for the Jets to win today. Now that's a joke.
Really bad.
That's right. Good luck with that.
Right.
All right, guys. We'll be back next week. I appreciate your company. That's the best thing I can tell you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And I will end it in a way that I've been ending a lot of the podcasts on the network. I would like it if anybody out there that enjoys the program, this program, any of our offerings, please box up children's books, take them to the Head Start program, lightly used children's books. They're really needed. Kids need to read. They need to develop a passion. They need to take their noses out of the devices and the computers, and they need to be school ready. They are our future. So if you guys out there, guys, women, men, audii, do it for me. Get some books out to the local Head Start program. Improve your community. Improve society. Thanks a lot, everybody, and thank you, guys, Michael and David.
Okay, see you next week.
Yep. See you
next week.
Bye.
All right, thank you.